Hi everyone, welcome. So today we are covering Unit 3, Lesson 2, and our objectives today, we are going to describe the complete taxonomy of a few organisms. We're going to explain the hierarchy of the modern classification schemes, and we're going to list the 3 domains of life and give examples of organisms in each. Okay, we're still working on that evolution state standards and looking at how organisms are related evolutionarily through their similarities and differences. Okay, so we're doing a little bit of a review from Lesson 1 and expanding upon that. Okay. All right, so all life on Earth has been organized into groups, well, all discovered and described life on Earth, because we learned yesterday that there are a lot of organisms, a lot of species that have yet to be discovered that are being discovered each year. Okay, but for years, scientists have been sounding alarms about increasing levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, including methane. And how does that relate to biology and taxonomy, right? There are microbes, right, bacteria that live in the digestive tracts of cows, and they produce methane. And when the cows, expel their gases, that methane ends up in the environment, and those microbes have been discovered, and they are described, and they have been categorized based on taxonomy. Okay. So again, this is review from yesterday, or our last lesson, it may be. And modern classification. We have 2-part names to identify species. The first name is the genus. The second name is the specific epithet. We used to refer to that as species, the specific epithet, the second name, but now it's more widely described as specific epithet, which means it's the descriptor. This is the name that makes them specific to their species. Okay, where we call the genus and the specific epithet together the species name. Okay. It's kind of just a way to make that a little more clear. All right, so in the pictures here we have some warblers, these birds, and they all belong to the same genus, Dendroica. Okay. There have been described about 20 different species in this genus, and that is based on differences in the plumage color, their feather color, the songs that they sing, and their mating behaviors. Okay, so each of these birds has their own scientific name. They all begin with that Dendroica for the genus, and then you can distinguish them by their specific epithet, the second part of their name. All right, so let's look a little bit closely at the binomial nomenclature. Right? Remember we talked bi, that prefix bi means 2. So binomial means 2 name, and then nomenclature means naming system. Okay, so it's a 2-part name that identifies a species, and the first name is the genus, the second is the specific epithet. Okay, there are some rules about how we write the scientific name. Right, we always capitalize that first name, that genus name. Okay, so we have Dendroica is the genus, and then the second name, the specific epithet, is not capitalized. Okay, this is Carolensis. Right. We also, when we type it, we are going to italicize or underline, and if we write it, we would underline. Okay, and we have the example for the tiger, right? Common name is tiger. The scientific name is Panthera tigris. Okay, not only, like we talked about in our last lesson, does that eliminate confusion, but it also tells us something about this organism, this species, right? We got tigris, that's the specific epithet or species, but we also have the genus Panthera, and we can look at other species that are in this same genus, and we know that they are more closely related. Okay? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a later slide. Okay? And here's a couple more examples of scientific names for some common organisms, including humans, Homo sapiens. And just pay attention to the way that the scientific name is written. It's in italics, and the genus name is capitalized, the specific epithet is lowercase. I wanted to point out dog. Okay, so Canis is the genus, Lupus is the specific epithet. Okay. And they have another name because Canis lupus is the same as a wolf. So dogs are a subspecies. Okay, so that's where that familiaris comes in. That's the subspecies. So some do have that subspecies included. All right, so let's talk about organizing. And we're going to use a messy bedroom as an example. Okay, so today scientists classify life on Earth into ranking of groups. Each group is more inclusive than the one that precedes it. Okay, so if we were to organize this bedroom, right, we're going to start with broad categories. Okay, some examples would be, and we all have different things in our rooms, but books, music, clothes. Maybe you have a collection of something. Maybe you have statues or decorations. Okay, those could be a broad category. Okay, and then you're going to take each of those categories and divide them further into more inclusive groups. Okay. So your clothes, right? Maybe you're going to divide them into shirts, sweaters, pants, socks, and maybe even by seasons, like summer clothes versus winter clothes. Okay, and then we can divide those even further down. Like we could say the socks. They could be short socks or long socks, or by color. Okay, so we can continue to organize into categories, smaller and smaller categories. Okay, and this is how scientists organize life. Right, so we're going to start with the broadest category of life, and those are called domains. All life fit into one of 3 domains. Okay. Those 3 domains are bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. Okay. So bacteria and archaea are both prokaryotes. So 2 of the 3 domains of life are prokaryotes. All multicell and some single-cell organisms fit into eukarya. Okay. Domains are kind of newer. I believe it was like in the 70s when scientists realized, because we used to have just kingdoms. That was the largest division. But we realized that we had bacteria and archaea all grouped together as just prokaryotes, and it was discovered that they are very different, and archaea are actually more closely related to eukaryotes than they are to bacteria. Okay, so we came up with our 3 domains. Okay. And then each of these domains is divided into kingdoms. Kingdoms are divided into phylum, then down into class, order, family, and then finally the genus and the species or the specific epithet. And that is the scientific name. Okay, each group becomes smaller in number all the way down to a single species. All right, so let's look at the mountain lion. We mentioned this in our last lesson, and we use the mountain lion in a lot of examples. But right, they are a multicell organism, so they are in the domain eukaryotes or eukarya. Okay, they are in kingdom Animalia. Right, the phylum is Chordata, so these are all organisms that have a backbone, vertebrates. Okay, and their class is Mammalia. This is all mammals. Their order is Carnivora. This is carnivores. So it's all cats and dogs and bears and other carnivores. Okay, and the family is Felidae. This is cats, the family of cats. All right, and the genus is Puma. And the specific epithet is concolor. Okay, so the scientific name is Puma concolor. All right, so like I mentioned before, domains are more recent. Okay, we didn't have domains. Yeah, it was 1970s where this biologist, Carl Woese, he realized that prokaryotes really had two distinct groups. Okay, and we needed to separate them. And it used to be just kingdoms. So all organisms were divided into just 5 kingdoms. It was animals, plants, fungi, protists, which are single-cell eukaryotes, and then Monera. That was all prokaryotes. Okay, and that's where the issue was. So now we have life divided into these 3 domains, and then those domains are divided into 23 different kingdoms. Okay. And that dividing of the prokaryotes was based on molecular evidence. Okay. The differences in those prokaryotes. Okay, so let's start with archaea. Okay. They are prokaryotes, and they have unique RNA sequences and unique membrane structures, right? The molecules that make up the membrane that allow them to live in extreme habitats. These are called our extremophiles. Some of the places they live are like thermal hot springs, volcanic vents, acidic pools, very salty water. Okay, so they live in places that other organisms would not be able to live. Okay, and they thrive there. Here's an example. We have archaeans at a black smoker vent. And if you look in your content, there is a little video showing a smoker vent in action. So we find archaeans here, our extremophiles. Next we have our domain bacteria. Again, they're also prokaryotes. And just a reminder, prokaryote, pro rhymes with no, they have no nucleus. Okay, same thing with the archaea. They're also prokaryotes, but they are very different from bacteria. One of those differences is that bacteria have this peptidoglycan cell wall that the archaeans do not. Okay. When we hear the word bacteria, myself included, I think of disease. Okay, so there are many bacteria that cause disease, like E. coli, which can cause sickness in up to like 73,000 people each year. Right, so that's a lot. But the majority of bacteria aren't harmful. Okay, there are helpful bacteria all over. Okay, they don't make the news because they don't make people sick. We sometimes just don't even realize, a lot of times don't realize they're even there. We have bacteria in our intestines that help with breaking down food. We have bacteria that cover our skin, and they are beneficial because being there doesn't hurt us, but being there prevents harmful bacteria from finding a place to live. Okay, so we like them being there. Okay. We also have bacteria that are decomposers. So they play an important role in the ecosystem in releasing nutrients back into the ecosystem. Okay. All right, on to our third domain, eukarya. This is the domain of most of the organisms that you think of, right? All of our multicell organisms, right? Eukaryotes have a nucleus. Eu rhymes with do, so eukarya have a nucleus. They do have a nucleus. Okay. There are some single cell eukaryotes. We call them protists. And but it also includes all the multicell. Okay. And we're going to look at some more of groups of eukaryotes like the protists, fungi, plants, and animals. Right. So every species on Earth has a unique taxonomy. So we can divide it from domain to kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, all the way to the species. And every described organism has a ranking in taxonomy. Okay, so we're going to look at two organisms. First one we're going to look at is the flamingo. Okay, there's a lot of words on here, but don't worry. This is just describing which of these they are classified in. Okay, so of course it is a multicell organism, so we know that they are in the domain eukarya. Okay, and they are animals, so that puts them into kingdom Animalia. Okay, this is all animals, from honeybees to bears to jellyfish. Okay, it's a wide kingdom. All right, but in this kingdom, birds are more closely related to jellyfish than to plants, but they have a big difference from jellyfish in that birds have a backbone. Okay, so that puts them into the phylum Chordata. And in this case, we have a subphylum of Vertebrata. Okay, that's vertebrate, right? They have a backbone. And Chordata means they have a spinal cord. Okay, and a flamingo is a bird, and we have a class for birds called the aves, or aves. Okay, and birds have feathers and hollow bones. Okay, that makes them different from reptiles because they do not have feathers. Okay, so reptiles are not in the aves class. All right, but there's a wide variety of birds. So now we're going to divide them into order. And flamingos have long legs and long beaks, and they like to stand in the water. So that makes them belong to the order of Synechoniformes. Okay, and finally, the family that includes flamingos is, I'm not sure how to pronounce this name, let me try it, Phenacopteridae. I think I put an extra vowel in there. That is flamingos, and their genus is related to the family name, and then their specific epithet is minor. Okay, it's the lesser flamingos. So Phenacanaes minor is the scientific name for flamingo. Okay, so we can start all the way from the top and keep dividing until we get down to our specific epithet, our individual species. But we can also go the other way. So our other example is a sugar maple. So maybe we know the species name, right? Acer saccharum, right? That saccharide, like a sugar. Okay, and then we can go the opposite direction. We can determine, well, we know the genus, it's Acer. We can go up to the family that all in this genus belong to. And then we can find the order, the class, the phylum, the kingdom, the domain. Okay. So we can go either direction. All right, so your book says that scientists have classified and described over 1.8 million. Other information told us it was like 2.1, so it's around 2 million. Okay, but there are many more species, and there's a whole range of estimated numbers. So, but there are millions of more species that need to be discovered and classified. Okay, or maybe it's a species. It's a part of a species that already exists, and maybe they are a subspecies, or just, they do belong to that species. That happens too. Okay, so on to our phylogenetic trees. Okay, you will most likely see some sort of phylogenetic tree on the state test. So we do look at these quite a bit. Okay, but the whole reason why scientists have developed classification schemes is to help us better understand the phylogenetic relationship, the evolutionary relationship among organisms on Earth. Okay. We're not worried about memorizing these species names. Okay. It's more about how they relate to each other and how they fit in the phylogenetic tree. Okay. Here's our definition. Phylogeny is evolutionary history. And when we display organisms on a diagram showing that evolutionary history, we call that a phylogenetic tree. Okay. Each of these junctures shows a common ancestor. That's the CA, common ancestor. Okay. And however many divisions away tells how far apart they are related. Okay. How many common ancestors back they have. All right, so we're on to our summary. Right, organisms are grouped into categories based on their shared traits. Okay. Both physical and molecular, right? We have DNA technology now. We also do amino acid sequencing so that we can look at the molecular level to see how organisms are related. Okay. The broadest category is the domain. There are 3 domains on Earth, and here's a little picture of them: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. And then these are divided into smaller and smaller groups all the way down to the species. Okay, there are a couple videos. Here is a link for Amoeba Sisters classification, and they do some memory tricks in there to remember the taxonomy levels. All right, on to our polling questions. So I'm going to give you the polling questions, and I'm not going to give you the answers. So we'll discuss the answers later. Or maybe I'll put this into a program and you can answer them right on the screen. That's my plan. Okay, so here we go. The species name of the African elephant is Loxodonta africana. In the species name, what is africana? Is it A, family, B, genus, C, specific epithet, or D, domain? Okay, next question. Which describes the broadest, most inclusive category of life on Earth? Is it A, domain, B, species, C, kingdom, or D, order? And final question. What are the 3 domains of life? Is it A, plants, animals, and fungi, B, archaea, prokarya, and eukarya, C, archaea, bacteria, and eukarya, or D, prokarya, bacteria, and eukarya? All right, that was our final question, and that leads us to our quiz. So we do have a quiz for this lesson. It's 3.02 quiz, modern classification. 3 multiple choice questions. All right, contact me with any questions. Bye.